You would perhaps have any secret knowledge if they're going to announce Devil May Cry 6 any day now. You wouldn't be able to tell us that.
No, I couldn't.
Dang it.
I'm not what people like to pin me as.
A few people say this. Well, I was okay when he was, he's a crazy person who believes in UFOs. But when he got into politics...
I don't think I've ever been into politics. That's the crazy thing. Everybody's just so quick to a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, Reuben, because he said this, he's canceled. Or because that happened, this is canceled. And that's not how this works, guys. Prior to this whole woke mind virus nonsense, we all kind of got along, and we had different views and different religious beliefs and different ways of thinking, but we still kind of got along. It'd be nice to get back to those days.
Hello and welcome to CultureScape, the show that interviews the geek creators and influencers who built nerd culture. I'm your host, Pete Pischke, and today we have an incredible show for you. Our guest is the beloved voice actor, motion capture artist, and stuntman, Reuben Langdon. Reuben has worked on blockbuster films like Avatar and Pirates of the Caribbean, and popular TV shows like Dexter, CSI Miami, and Power Rangers. But he's probably best known to my audience for his voice acting, in roles such as the video game Devil May Cry series, in which he plays the role of protagonist Dante. And of course, Ken Masters in the Street Fighter series, and more. In today's episode, we'll dive into Reuben's storied career, explore the world of motion capture, and discuss what it's like being a stuntman. I've never had a guest on before that's a stuntman. This is new. We'll also get the scoop on Devil May Cry 6, the DMC Netflix anime, and delve into why some have tried to cancel him for his views, plus UFOs. Reuben is an expert on UFOs, people. He even has a podcast he does, Interview with Ed. So this episode, I think, will be a fun one. Welcome to the show, Reuben.
Thanks for having me, Peter. Glad to be here.
I'm jazzed. I, of course, like many people of my certain age, played the Devil May Cry series, especially back when I was a teenager. So whenever I talk to someone that I had great admiration for in my previous version of myself, it always puts a little smile on my face. So thank you for agreeing to do this.
No problem. Yeah, I'm a big fan of nerd culture, as I'm a nerd myself, and love the fans, love the excitement around these topics, and hopefully we can get into that UFO subject you were mentioning, because that is definitely a topic near and dear to my heart as well.
Yeah, it is interesting. So last week, on the last episode, we talked with Ellie Garcia, who is JRRM, George R.R. Martin's co-author, and he started as a fan and eventually graduated to friend and then co-author. You are kind of similar because your story beginnings, from my understanding, is that you really liked anime and Power Rangers in the early 90s. And so then you've decided to emigrate to Japan, and eventually you did end up on Power Rangers. Would you like to tell us some about it?
Yeah, talk about a dream come true. So yeah, my excitement for anime, for basically all things Japan. I found that out at a young age. I think in junior high school, my mom drug me to a Star Trek convention. Back then, we didn't have anime conventions. We had, this was in the 80s, so we had Star Trek conventions, and we were lucky to get a booth or two of someone selling VHS. The best quality was the VHS Laserdisc copies of VHS bootleg videos of the latest, greatest anime that just came out of Japan, which at that time was called Japanimation. So talk about old school. I found this, I remember walking by a booth, and they had Macross the movie, right? Which in the States we know Macross as Robotech. And Robotech was my favorite show growing up as a kid, especially in elementary and junior high school. And I was like, why are they all speaking Japanese? This is crazy. What's going on here? And then the guy at the booth was like, man, get with it. This is Japanimation, man. Don't you know? And I was like, no, I didn't know. This is crazy. So immediately I realized that all my favorite shows, from Spectrum Man to Gotcha Man, which was in the States was called what was it called? Battle of the Planets, I believe. And what other shows were there? Mazinger Z, which was Transor Z, right? So all of these shows that were my favorite shows, I realized they were all from Japan. So I started thinking, okay, there's something to this Japanese thing. I need to like do more research and figure out what's going on there, especially with the samurais and everything else, ninjas. So yes, I made it a life mission at that young age. I got to get my ass to Japan. So that came true at the age of 19. I had tried to get there by other means during high school. I just didn't have the funds or the grades to do any kind of cultural, exchange student programs. I remember my friend got selected to go to Japan for like 2 weeks, and I was so jealous. And I'm like, that's crazy. But he had both funds and the grades. So I was just working like crazy. Every job I could find. I sold candy at school. I did whatever I could to fill my bank, my pockets, and my bank accounts to get ready to go to Japan. And finally, at the age of it was right after my 19th birthday. Actually, at the age of 18, I was pretty much ready to go, and I waited a couple more months to get my get a little bit more money and to be secure. And I saved up about $10,000 and got on a ticket, bought a plane ticket, and I was off to Japan at the age of 19.
Did you have a plan? Did you even know what you wanted to do for like work?
No, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I had to get to Japan. So luckily, though, I leading up to that, during my right after high school, I worked for about a year at the duty-free shops in the Atlanta airport. And everybody, all the employees and the staff, they all knew of my affection for Japan. So they quickly moved me to the Japanese flights because I would get a chance to practice my Japanese, ask, Tojo ken o onegaishimasu, which is, can I see your boarding card? And then I learned how to count, and I would, little things here and there, and that I would exchange with the Japanese customers. But there was a couple of older women who had migrated to the States, who were from Japan, ended up marrying servicemen, and during the war, and came over, and they were just all about like, oh, Reuben, you love Japan so much. This is crazy. We got to help you get there. So one day, actually, that I was not there, they actually helped make a sign that was basically said in Japanese, if there's any work exchange, or if you have any kind of opportunities for this young man to get to Japan, to help him out for jobs or teaching or whatever, please let us know. So I used to put this sign on my register every day before going into to do my work. And people would look at the sign, and then they would look at me and look at the sign. And they're like, "Oh, you want to go to Japan?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, that's very nice." And I'm like, okay. So I guess that's all I get. And that was just constant for months. And then the one time I was not there, I forgot my sign. I left it on the register. And this gentleman came through. He was a bigwig on Camp Zama, which was an army base just outside of Tokyo. And he saw the sign. He couldn't read it. He just saw the sign. He's like, what's this sign here, and what's going on? What's that say? And then all the old ladies were just like, oh, yeah, there's this guy. He wants to go to Japan. He's an employee here. He's really nice. He wants to get Japan any opportunities. He goes, oh, yeah, maybe I might be able to help him out. And then he gave them his business card. And that's all. So that's all I had to go on. I made a call like a few months before. I said, I might be going to Japan soon. I don't know when. What do you think? And he goes, well, yeah, I work at Kanzama. And he explained it. And he's like, well, if you're in town, give me a call. Maybe we can figure something out, just, and that was it. So I went to Japan, and I stayed the first night. I actually slept in the airport, because I remember coming out of customs and walked down. This was in the early 90s, so English and Romaji were not very prevalent in all the train stations and everywhere like they are now. You can still find some train stations where they're still in Japanese, but at that time it was only the big stations had English. So I remember walking down the into the train station and seeing the crazy, you know, if you've been to Japan, you've seen the train station, then the train map, right? This is before we had cell phones and like translation devices and things to, you know, give you directions and here how to go here. Google was not existent then. So I just saw the craziness and got dizzy and I'm like, okay, what did I get myself into? So I went back up into the airport and found a bench and just kind of sat there and just was like, oh man, I'm in Japan. This is awesome, but I have no idea what I'm gonna do. And ended up sleeping on the bench that night. And then next day I called my mom. It was kind of late. I think it was like about 5 at night or something, 5 or 6 in the afternoon. So it was basically, I spent the night in the airport, but it wasn't like a big deal. And I remember kept getting woken up by, you know, police officers in the middle of the night, you know, oh, what's going on? I'm like, oh, I'm here. I'm just waiting for my bags, whatever, you know, and they're just, oh, okay. Left me alone. So I got to know the airport really well. Felt like Tom Hanks in Terminal. And eventually I called my mom and she goes, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, maybe I should call that guy. She goes, yeah, maybe you should call the guy. So then I called him and he's like, oh yeah, you're here. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Where are you at? I'm like, oh, I'm actually at the airport. I don't know what to do. And he's like, oh, okay, well, there's a bus. You get on this bus and then I'll meet you when you get off the bus. So he got my name on the list, got me on the bus. And then I was off to the races. I got to Japan and began my adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy came in clutch. He was a good Samaritan for you.
He totally did. Yeah. And I ended up staying with him for about a week. And then he got me set up right away with a job on the base. So I was ecstatic. I had a visa status where I could, you know, be in Japan within a week and work in Japan and sort of be legal. And then I kind of hopped around and met different people that worked on the base. Still my friends today. I called them up. I'm like, guys, I'm back in Japan. Let's meet up. So, yeah, good buddies and eternally grateful for for them taking me in at such a young age and sort of showing me the ropes of Japan and Japanese culture and now here I am, over 20 years later, back in Japan, living the life, a new life, different life. I'm married now, and we bought a nice place out in the country, and it's a different experience, but it's very much connected to that original sort of leap of faith to get on that plane and venture out to a new world and go where very few at that time had gone before, very few foreigners.
No, and I think that is truth to much of your career. You kind of just keep putting yourself out there in these really different, I think, experiences that perhaps a lot of people would be uncomfortable with, but you keep trying different things. You've been a stuntman. You've worked in TV and film. You led a motion capture studio. You've done voice acting. You've done, all kinds of interesting things. So, that definitely shows that spirit you have with you has served you well. What's it like being a stuntman? A friend of mine, I do not follow any of the Sentai shows or any of that, but he's crazy into it. And he was telling me one time, he's like, being a stuntman in Japan versus U.S. and even just Asia in general versus U.S. is like night and day. Because according to him, at least, he said, they're just willing to do so much risky crap that even other people are like, I don't know about that. Is that true?
Yes and no. Let me say this: the stuntmen in Japan, there's a very regimented, especially in Japan compared to the rest of the world, even Hong Kong. There's a very regimented, there's different schools in Japan. They have action schools, and it's a very regimented, strict curriculum that you go through, and you obtain skills. And once you get those skills, you're sort of at a level where you can do more riskier things because you've worked your way up to it. It's like getting your martial arts black belt. You know, you have to go through different tests and things like that. And in America, the way the stunt world used to work, there's a lot of mirroring now that's happening in Japan and in the States. But the way it used to work in the States was, if you just had, if you were risky and you were a kind of, this image of the stuntman, right? The cowboy, the risk taker, and that's not actually the way we may perceive that from being in the West and looking out East and looking at these crazy Hong Kong movies, Jackie Chan and a lot of the Japanese samurai stuff. You may think that they are super risk takers, but it's actually very calculated and very regimented and advanced. So that's why they're able to do what appears to be very crazy, wild stuff. But there's definitely a process to it all. And in the States, we had that sort of wild cowboy, just get in there and do it. But since my stunt career, starting in the late 90s in the States, working on Power Rangers and then working within the stunt industry, there definitely was has been, and it's ongoing, an evolution of adapting a lot of the ways of Asia in regimented and being more strict with your training and having specific skills and then maintaining those skills. Where back in the old days, it was just the wild, wild west. You're a stuntman, you're a risk taker, and you just go in there and you do the best you can do. Where now it's very much Hollywood has become more regimented as well, and a lot of positive things come with that. One, visually, the stuff that's happening in Hollywood now visually is much more appealing than, in my opinion, than what was happening back in the day. And also, there's a lot of safety checklist things that go along the way as well. So it's both. It's crazy visually, and there's a lot of risks being taken, but it's also very regimented. And we don't see the regimented side as a viewer. We just see the man, that's crazy. But there's a lot of calculations and safety precautions that go into all of it.
I mean, your career is you've just done so many things. So we could spend an hour and a half talking about any one of these subjects, but I want to try to see if I can get a little bit on each of them at least. So
Sure.
But okay, so you did get to work on the Power Rangers, which was something that you had wanted to do. Tell me your craziest or your best being a stuntman stories. Just share a few of them with us if you'd like.
Well, see, so working in Japan, I worked as an actor. I got cast on the TV show B-Fighter Kabuto, which is a Power Ranger-esque. It's within the Toei studio system. They were always filming Power Rangers simultaneously. They sort of had two shows, the Kamen Rider, and the history of sort of Tokusatsu is sort of the title for that genre of Kamen Rider and insects and suits, big heavier suits, metal heroes. It's another kind of title that's given to them. And then you have the Sentai, which is the Rangers. And simultaneously, these two TV shows had been going over and over and over again in Japan for, I think, what are we at, 50 years now? Something like that. It's crazy.
Wow.
Close to it. And every year it's a new rendition, different suits, different toys. It's mostly the toys. The sales of the toys are what's pushing that industry to keep going. And you have new kids and new generations of toy buyers. So I was part of the Tokusatsu version, the B-Fighter Kabuto. And as an actor, it was such a great experience because one, I had been watching Power Rangers on screen. I knew about Kamen Rider. It hadn't made its way to the States at that time, I believe, until I actually had come to Japan. Then it made its way over through Beetleborgs and would they actually call it the Masked Rider? I forgot what they even called it. But it just started coming out after I moved to Japan. And they would do the same sort of formula as the Power Rangers, where they would hire American actors, replace all the Japanese actor footage, and just keep all of the transformation, the henshin-go, which is the after transformation fight stuff, and they would integrate that into the new actors. And that's sort of the formula that Saban created that is now created, legacy. And so for me, getting cast, it was a dream come true. I remember it was my 21st birthday, my first day on set, and they put me through the ringer of, transforming, being the cool hero, beating up the bad guys in the suits. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to do this the rest of my life. I don't want to do anything else. And for the most part, in some form or fashion, I've been, beating up monsters, whether it's in a mocap suit or in on screen, and becoming monsters myself for a long time. It's been a career. But so that I had that sort of background. And then when I went to the States, I actually went straight. I had friends that had worked on Power Rangers in the States, and they came back and they told me who to contact, and that their friends had been working a couple seasons on Power Rangers. And if you want to go to the States, then that's a good opportunity. So as soon as I get off the plane, I remember actually my first day getting off the plane, coming back to the States for just sort of a vacation or sort of checking things out. I was kind of like, I had lived 4 years in Japan, done the show, worked on commercials, done a lot of stuff in Japan, and actually took a little trip to Hong Kong, looked at that industry, and I think I was about 25-ish. And I was like, okay, I need to expand my horizons. There's limited opportunities in Japan. So when I got back to the States, I had those connections to Power Rangers. So I went literally straight from the airport, dropped my bags off, and then went to the Power Ranger set up in, off the 14, northern, a little bit north of LA. So, so everybody recognized me, all the Japanese guys. They were like, oh, you're you're B-Fighter Yama. We know who you are, because they all were fans of the shows, and they worked. Some of them had actually worked on the show, or knew of it. So we started speaking Japanese, and like, hey, we could use someone of your that I had the command of the language at that time, and I understood the body language as well. The unique style of Japanese suit acting. I had not done that in Japan except for little guest appearances at some of the live shows and stuff like that. But so they were super excited to have me and bring me into their crew, and I was excited too. I was like, wow, cool. I love, this is a genre I love. I love I had been training with the guys from the show in Japan for many years. I had picked up some skills. But what I found out was I wasn't quite at that level yet, because a lot of the guys in Japan, because I was sort of the foreigner, so to say, they had a policy, an open policy, where they would allow me as the foreigner, because I was an outside person, to sort of hop around different action schools and train with the different groups. But they never gave me the detailed training that actually was super necessary to become a full-blown suit actor. So I was lacking in some basic skills that the guys in the States saw. Oh, wait, you've been in Japan, you've trained, but yeah, you're missing some of the key things in order to be a full-blown, suit actor. You still need some work. So luckily they took me in, and they saw how hard I was trying, and they had experienced American culture by living in America. So, and they saw how hard I had been trying with training and learning the language and the customs and everything else, that they kind of started. That's when I started really getting, it's like Mr. Miyagi makes you paint the fence for, days and days and days, and they don't teach you the true, whatever the crane kick is until you've put in your time. And that's true with the culture and those people. I didn't really get my super detail training until I had actually moved back to the States and was working with a different group of Japanese professionals, super trained, Alpha Stunts, Koichi, the gang, AAC is the other team I was working with, Makoto Yokoyama. And those guys actually really then at that time started teaching me the details that I needed to become a true suit actor and work on the show. So sorry, it was probably a long answer to that, but I know there's so many rabbit holes we could go down. But
I know. But you're too interesting, so we just have to. Yeah, I know.
But yeah, so it was kind of a fun. And then I worked on Power Rangers for a couple of years, full time. That was my full time job, and as a suit actor, and then I just got really good at that, and that prepared me for my next leg, which simultaneously I had been venturing to Hong Kong and hanging out with Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung, and then the next leg of my career, which after Power Rangers, Power Rangers, the filming, Disney owned it, and then they to cut costs, they took the whole production to New Zealand, and at that time, sort of simultaneously, I was offered to go back to Hong Kong and work in Hong Kong with Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung. So I ended up doing that, working on a film called what is it called? The Medallion.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen that one.
And terrible movie, but an amazing experience I would never forget. Getting to work with Jackie and Sammo at such close proximity, and then and it was there on that film that I got to meet the late great Brad Allen, who is no longer with us, but he was one of Jackie Chan's stuntmen, and we became good buddies, and he's went off and did films like Shang-Chi and Solo and other action for great films.
So how did you find yourself then later working in motion capture? Because it's from motion capture then that leads you into doing the stuff with video games, right?
Yeah. So I had actually, while working in Japan, before I even went to back to work on Power Rangers in the States, motion capture and video games were sort of, they were developing. Resident Evil, Tekken, these games were coming out and becoming worldwide hits. And PlayStation, I remember I was actually, right when I moved to Japan, the PlayStation came out, the first one. And sort of 3D graphics of that sort was the next big thing. And they were using motion capture technology for games like Virtual Fighter or Tekken or not the first Resident Evil, but it was Resident Evil Code Veronica.
On the Dreamcast.
On the Dreamcast.
I remember playing that one, yeah.
I got called to an audition through my connections through the Japanese stunt action schools. They were casting more physical actors who could do stunts and stuff for the motion capture work. And I remember getting called to the audition, and they were like, "Hey, this is for a video game project we can't tell you what it is, but eventually it's going to be released only in English. So it might be an advantage to have a native English speaker on set and to be a part of that project." So I went to the audition. I auditioned for Chris Redfield and then got the part. And then it was during that process of doing the motion capture, I kind of, I was taking notes and I was like, man, this is great. I'm working on this awesome game that's going to become a worldwide phenomenon. But I had already, through Resident Evil, the first Resident Evil, and I think 2 had already come out then, maybe even 3. So what it was is they wanted me to speak all my lines in English for a more authentic performance that was matching the original script. And later they would still dub my voice over, but all the other actors were speaking Japanese. So, and I read by that time I could, I was used to acting and reading in Japanese and, could communicate well. So it was just kind of this awkward experience where I had to tell the other actors, my last line basically, to so that was their cue to cue them for their line, and then I would listen to them, and I could understand what they're saying, but they didn't really understand exactly what I was saying. They read the script, so they knew the Japanese translation, but they were kind of pretending that they understood what I was saying. So what what I noticed at that time, and then for the games like Metal Gear and stuff that were coming out around that time, is you kind of had this bad kung fu movie dubbing effect where good, not to diss on any performers. The performances were great. Japanese performers pretending to be American sort of characters, because all these characters like in Metal Gear, Resident Evil, they're American characters, but they that spoke native English in the game. That was sort of who they were, but behind the scenes, it was Japanese actors pretending to speak English, so to say. So then what happened was their physical gestures, they would still act in Japanese. And when you're speaking in Japanese, the cadence, the body language, it's different than if, especially for specific words that are being used, as I'm using this gesture to show the sound coming out of my mouth. And there's a timing to all that, where in Japanese, for Japanese language, there's a timing to all that. But what would happen was the Japanese performers would pretend like, okay, probably someone speaking English is going to say it like this. And they would put this sort of fake body language to the performance. And then later it'd be dubbed into English. And most people didn't see what was going on, but I was like, something's off here. People in the States they're gonna feel a little off about this. So fast forward a few years later, I had already put in some time on Power Rangers, and I created a company with I had a partner out in Japan. We created a company together, and we were trying to production company trying to get some film projects going. And we sort of had the opportunity to pitch to Capcom and other game companies. Who else we got? I think we went to Square. We went to who else did we go to? We went to several game companies, Namco at the time. We sort of pitched to them that, hey, instead of hiring Japanese performers to do your motion capture for a game that's eventually ultimately going to come out in English, why don't you hire us? We'll coordinate it. We'll cast it for you. We'll get your actors and we'll bring them to Japan to do the motion capture if that's what you want to do. Or maybe we could even do the motion capture in the States, and then you guys can work on the games there, and we'll handle those aspects. So Capcom was the first one to sort of bite on that proposal, that pitch. And they had just finished doing all the motion capture for Resident Evil Outbreak, the first Outbreak game, and which was sort of like a side story game where you're still in the Resident Evil world, but it's different characters. And they had some pickups that they wanted to do, and they're like, "Hey, can you guys, cast some folks out in America and then bring them out to Japan and we'll do the motion capture out here?" We're like, "Yeah, sure." So we did it. It was only like a 2-day shoot. Super small. I think we got 4 actors, including myself. Flew them to Japan, got their work visas, did everything professional, and they really loved that whole experience. I think for Capcom was a good experience. They liked us doing that, and then I think they could see the end result compared to what they'd already shot. They're like, "Oh yeah, there's a difference here." So right after that, they said, "Hey, we just finished." They had just finished producing Devil May Cry 2, hadn't even come out. They were getting ready to release it, and they're like, "We're already going to jump right into Devil May Cry 3." Devil May Cry 2 was sort of a rush project, but we have this whole new vision to recreate the show or the franchise with this new take of Dante, the main character, and we love what you guys did on Outbreak. Could you guys do a similar thing and cast the actors out of the States and bring them to Japan? We're like, "Yeah, sure." And then, but they were like, "Oh, by the way, Reuben, you kind of look like Dante. Could you would you mind? Would you want to audition for that character? And I'm like, yeah, totally. I'd love, I love that game. The first game I was a fan of the game, and I'd love to audition for that role. Like, okay. So back to the States, we're working months and doing our casting, getting the scripts together, doing the whole lot. My partner stays in Japan. He's working with the Japanese crew. So because of my experience on Power Rangers, I wanted to make sure, we were bringing actors from the States to Japan. We had to make sure, because it's our assets on the line now, because we're now, in a sense, sponsoring these actors. So if they were to go to Japan and become rowdy or do illegal stuff, it doesn't work. It's not like in the States where the actor would then be, if did something illegal, so to say, or out of conduct, the actor would be guilty, and then they wouldn't, they could put all the blame on the actor. In Japan, you can't do that. The way the customs and the culture works, the company that's sponsoring those actors becomes responsible. Huh. So I had to really make sure that whatever actor we were bringing to Japan, like, I could trust personally. So it was a very small audition compared to the scope of the game. We only had like 30 people come in per role, some only maybe 10. But I wanted to make sure I had either worked with those people or known those people. And it was Dan Southworth and Johnny Bosch and other actors that I had worked with on Power Rangers that I knew, okay, these guys I can trust. They also understood working with the Japanese culture through the Power Ranger work that they had done. So I specifically focused my attention, and there's other actors I knew outside of that circle that I had, through acting class or whatever, that I'd pulled into auditions. But it was really a small, select group of actors that I handpicked to come to the audition, because I wanted to make sure if they got picked by Capcom that we would be able to deliver. And that's how the Devil May Cry casting went. And I actually had, Johnny Bosch and Dan Southworth audition for the role of Dante in the very beginning.
Huh. That's so, I guess that makes sense. I guess I didn't really think of it that way, because Johnny was on Power Rangers. And so you were on Power Rangers. So it does make sense to my brain then that he would, but it seems so interesting then that it seems like the main pillars of the voice cast on that series all kind of came through the Power Rangers series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. we actually just did we were at Power Morphicon and we did a Devil May Cry panel. I was with Johnny and Dan. And we talked about it. We were like, hey, the whole Devil May Cry phenomenon, at least where it's at now, with the actors and everybody, it was birthed from the Power Rangers. Totally.
That kind of does make sense, because Devil May Cry, Devil May Cry is interesting, because I think Resident Evil is the series that if you think about like Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6, they're trying to be very edgy in your face, and Devil May Cry is kind of like that, but really it's also kind of like family cheese. And that's kind of how the plot line of Devil May Cry is, where it's just like it's just a family thing. It's a family thing. They're dealing with family issues. The demon spawn, half demon spawn from hell. Hopefully they can get some therapy or something. If they have problems, wouldn't we all?
Yep.
I find that connection heartwarming. That does also explain, and we can get into this later. First, I've always heard that Johnny Young Bosch is a pretty stamped dude. But second, why he has, for lack of a better term, shown so much loyalty even with this recasting in Netflix. So that's a really interesting connection. I'm sure people who are like way into Devil May Cry, like, oh, this is so obvious. I already knew that, Pete. Like, but I'm a little dense. So you were working on Devil May Cry for a good long time. You were in Devil May Cry 3. 4, 5, and then appearances between. There was a Devil May Cry 2007 anime. You showed up in a whole bunch of little games. I think you're in like the third Shin Megami Tensei game, or like a DLC character or something. I don't know. It's been a while.
Yep.
Yeah, you were busy.
Yeah, and then there was all the special editions stuff. So not just acting, but for all of those, I was producing too. So I was responsible for, again, coordinating, bringing actors to Japan for the motion capture, a lot of the script translations, a lot of the, the voiceover portions that in those early days were separate, so we'd have to, most of the voiceover sessions we'd record back in the States because it was just cheaper to get the producers to the States and get everybody in a voice booth and bring the actors in LA over for that. But so there was a lot of elements involved for all those games, and I was, wore many hats. It was much more than just acting as Dante.
Yeah, no, you're sorry, you were the motion capture guy. By the time DMC 5 happens, Dante looks a heck of a lot like yourself. It's pretty close. It's just like if you took a little bit of roids, you really got working on that.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't know, that's pretty interesting. I don't know of too many instances. In fact, I don't know of any other instances where it's the voice actor, also foreign producer, and motion capture guy are all three the same guy. Because in video games, it's usually like, you have so many different people, the influences are coming from so many different places, but it's interesting. In this case, it was so concentrated.
Yeah, I never really thought about that either, but yeah, I guess, there was a lot of my essence in all of that stuff for a while there.
Yeah. So so Resident Evil, and then when did your spot as Ken Masters in Street Fighter happen? Was that before Devil May Cry or after?
It was after Devil May Cry. I feel like were we working on Resident Evil, one of the Resident Evils, maybe 5, maybe right after we finished 5. I feel like through a different, because I'd already been working in, at the voiceover studios. We used at the time Yutaka Maseba, and he had Zero Limit Productions, and he was doing a lot of the voiceovers for a lot of prominent anime, like the Ghost in the Shell series and the movie, and he had cast Johnny and the redub of Akira, and so he also, we had basically hired his staff and studio to do the dubbings for Devil May Cry 3 and several games after that. So we had a close relationship, and I was sort of, not working so much as a voice actor, but getting to know the players, getting to know the different actors in the world and the different, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, amazing voice director, and getting to know those people, that industry. So word of mouth, I get called to an audition, which they didn't tell, you typically at auditions, they don't tell you the title. It's usually kind of hidden for protection in case, because a lot of people go through the audition process. And if that were to leak out to the public, then especially for a prominent game like Street Fighter, then that, they want to keep it secret to surprise the world. So I got called to the audition, and right away, they changed all the names of the characters, but right away I was like, oh my God, this is Street Fighter. Is this, because I was an avid Street Fighter fan. So I was like, wow, it'd be so cool to get the one of these characters. And I auditioned for Ken, Guile, and Dan. And at the time, I didn't know who Dan was or what that was. I was like, oh, a new character. Wouldn't it be so cool to get that role? And I'm so glad I did get that role.
I'm sure for the 10 Dan players out there, they're heartbroken by your statement.
I know. Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. But at the time I was like, oh, cool. A new character. That'd be so cool to get that. So later, Jonathan, he was in charge of the casting and everything. And he called me and said, hey, so you got the job of Ken Masters. And I was like, what? Blown away. Super ecstatic because, again, childhood, so much of my time and money went into Street Fighter 2, leading up to my journey to Japan. So yeah, it was super exciting. I was super excited, and it was outside of my company, and I wasn't producing, and I was just going in as an actor, and that was sort of a nice shift in the way I'd been doing things with wearing many hats.
What were some of your favorite experiences working with Capcom on these games or working around them? Like, what are the things that like pop in your head? Oh, that was a really cool, positive moment for you.
Well, it was, especially with not Super, Devil May Cry. The Devil May Cry team was pretty tight, and Itsuno-san, who was the director of those games, just an outstanding, fabulous guy, right? Just someone that he's always laid back and has a clear vision. And the team that he would bring together, just everybody really was passionate about their work. And there was not really a lot of politics involved. Capcom, an indie company at that level, there's different stages and positions and politics involved, especially from myself and my partner coming from the film industry, where there's all kinds of hierarchy and studio heads and all that stuff, right, that you have to deal with, and everybody's got to put in their 2 cents to keep their job going. It's almost like it becomes like governmental over time, where you have to justify your position just to get a paycheck. So people do stuff that's not necessary, but they do it because they want to justify their position to keep their paycheck or whatever. And most of the time, those are bad choices. Just let the artist do the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to Devil May Cry and the team and video games, especially at that time, it was this sort of new blood, this new industry where there was a lot of creativity and there was less politics involved, in that sense of, trying to justify positions. And it was great. It was, the actors could act, the director could direct, everybody came together, we all did our jobs, and we all had a great time. And it was sort of the golden era. I don't know if video games now, maybe some of the smaller ones might still have that energy, but the games have gotten so big that it's hard to sometimes to have that type of freedom on so many levels, where you can just be frank with everybody and say what you want to say and not get slapped or put in a corner or canceled. And I know that might be coming up soon here, but yeah, it was sort of the golden era of video game making, and we all had fun and did what we showed up and we did our job and had fun at it. So that was really a nice memory.
Yeah, that's how I kind of like it too. I just work is work, and I wanna be able to apply myself, pour myself into it, do a good job, not have to worry about other things. The people I'm working with have my back. I mean, that's the ideal for me. It sounds like you had a pretty good situation. Capcom in the 2000s was fantastic. It really was. You said golden era. That's correct. I just think of like God Hand is from the 2000s. You have many of the Devil May Cry, Monster Hunter shows of the 2000s, Beautiful Joe. Just so many fantastic games. A lot of experimental games.
Yeah,
not quite the same. Though there are plenty of amazing Capcom games still. It's just, like you said, it's a different area, different style, definitely different size company than it used to be.
Totally.
Okay, so you did say, well, the cancellation talk is coming up here. It almost feels like I'm on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I know that I'm gonna go over that fall any minute now, and I don't want to make you super uncomfortable, okay? But yeah, I do have to tell you
that would be as possible.
Okay, I had to tell you, when all the Vic Mignogna, I've had Vic on the show twice. Very lovely human being, just very, very graceful, kind, polite, interesting guy. You were one of the people that spoke up for him. I think also you mentioned Johnny earlier. I think he said a few good words about Vic when all that was going down. What happened, before we get into the specific situation, what happened to voice acting from the 2000s to now? Because when I was into anime as a teenager, no one gave a flying fish what their views or politics or anything was. It's like, I don't know. They could believe in anything whatsoever. I would not care. I like the guy as Sesshomaru that's like David Kay, or I like that guy as Ed Alric that's Vic Mignogna. I don't know anything else about them. I don't really want to know anything else about them. And something changed where now it's like, well, do you know what they believe in? No. Should I? Well, you should know. Well, I like that guy.
Right.
Well, no, you're not allowed to like that guy. Why not? I just watched this thing. It was really good. No, you don't understand, Peter. Like, what happened? What's your opinion? What's your thought on this?
The woke mind virus. It's infected society, and not just anime. You know, that was one of the key things it got into early on, but it it's wiggled its way into all aspects of society, and especially more in America than, I'm here in Asia and I don't feel that at all. But it really did. It has been a key destructive factor in much of what we're seeing in all aspects of America.
Yeah, no. It's interesting to hear come from you, because you're definitely, I think it's one thing when you have people on Twitter or Reddit, the weebs who are saying this stuff. And it's not, the chuds. It's another when you hear from actual people who are working in this industry and kind of see this change. I'll give you a quick example. Okay. And I was getting ready for this interview, and so sometimes there's a controversy around some actor or person, and you look into it and it's like, actually, yeah, that guy, there's huge problems there. The thing that's going on with P. Diddy right now.
Yeah, P. Diddy, yeah,
completely
sure.
legit.
Yeah.
However, there are other times you look into it and it's just utter bullcrap. That happened with my last guest. I've seen that more than a few times with some people I've had on the show. I'll even get this to share a screen. Okay, so this is just like an example of the stuff I've been kind of seeing. So for those unaware, there's a new anime coming out. Johnny Young Bosch is going to voice Dante in it. And they said, well, why hasn't Reuben been here? And the Johnny says, well, he's kind of got out of acting. And there was an issue, I think, where you said that Capcom didn't want you to be Ken Masters anymore. So people are like, oh, they can't take this away from Reuben. He's such a big, important part of Dante. I look at here at Reddit. This post is 1.8 thousand people, 324 comments, and it actually had quite a few very supportive comments. It still does. But then it has this thing from the Reddit admin that says, hey guys, well, some of the conversation here has been informative. A lot of it has gone off track, has moved into hurtful, hateful, and just plain argument/personal attacks. Therefore, I'll be locking the thread. However, let me be very clear. Reuben's personal opinions are dangerous and harmful to the community at large. In no way do I/we support him. We'll continue to take a stance against misinformation, against any hatred towards any people. Well, one can appreciate what he's done for the series. We can also criticize any stupid, wrong opinions that he's made public, and they are absolutely effing stupid. If you disagree with his stance, believe that garbage, you are not welcome to this community. I suggest you find somewhere else to discuss such idiotic rhetoric. Now, the thing is, I think if we have discussed, now how do there we go, stop, share. Amazing. Is that Dante has your voice. Dante has your body language, and Dante looks like you. That's pretty ingrained. That's pretty ingrained. So it's so crazy to me that I'll see things like the official Devil May Cry subreddit, which is almost 200,000 members, and the mods are posting things like this. I mean, it's just bizarre.
Yeah, that's that woke mind virus, man. It'll get in there and screw you up.
Now, you don't have a problem with people who disagree with your politics. I don't think you've ever said, "Oh, I can't work with that guy. He's or Prague, or he is a huge fan of the COVID vaccine. I don't like the COVID vaccine. I won't work with him."
No, I don't care.
Okay, but I have heard that said about you, which is interesting.
Sure.
Another interesting point, I think, is that they always want to cut a difference between, say, your UFO views, right? A few people say this. Well, I was okay when he was, he's a crazy person who believes in UFOs. But when he got into politics, that's when he became dangerous.
I don't think I've ever been into politics. That's the crazy thing, is I've never supported one side or the other. I think the whole left-right paradigm is part of the problem, actually.
I agree.
And I've never taken a side, so it's just funny how people like to put labels on me and say, "Oh, I'm a pro-Trumper, or I'm whatever the current, anti-woke version. I love the title woke because it is a good label for, and I'm really not a fan of labels, but so many people are really drawing the line in the sand, the antiers, right? The anti this, anti that. They're the anti. So, I have a problem with vaccines. I've shared, in public that since when I was 9 months old, I had an older brother, 2 years old, that died, we believe, from a vaccine.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So from a young age, I was very aware. My mom educated me on the dangers of vaccines, the MMR vaccine. And I've been doing my research on that. And we have whistleblowers who've come out. Andrew Wakefield from the CDC, who's talked about his research and findings from the MMR vaccine specifically. This is all before COVID. So I was already very hip to the agendas going on behind the scenes pre-COVID, and was very vocal about it. And, obviously when COVID hit, I was just going on my research and just saying, hey guys, maybe we should do a little more research than jump right into this experimental bioweapon, which, in the traditional vaccine sense, which there's still dangers to that, but much safer than what this was, obviously. So anyways, I get labeled, this whole anti. So if you're anti-vaccines, then you're automatically put into this label of, must be a conservative Trump supporter. And it was actually Trump, just to be critical of Trump, Project Warp Speed was actually the
That
whole
is
reason,
true.
It's like, what are you guys? And Trump still hasn't apologized for that. So that's why I'm very critical of Trump. If Trump were to apologize for that and not be so hardcore on his pro-Israel stances, I might support Trump. But because of those two issues, I can't get behind Trump at all. He's done a lot of amazing other good things when it comes to human trafficking and outing the cesspool, the swamp, and fake media and all that stuff that he's been calling out for a while. So he's a complicated figure, and we don't want to get political on this, but basically, I'm not what people like to pin me as is on these, a homophobe or anything like that. I have many gay friends. I have trans friends. This is so far from any truth whatsoever. But it's just funny how that group of people has created their own echo chamber of, if one of these subjects, if they don't check all the boxes, and if one is off, then they're automatically that type of person. No, I was like, so that's it. It's just like, hey guys, look in the mirror. People are people, and a lot of people have a lot of spectrums of different views and understandings and how they see the world and worldviews. And just because they don't fit in your box, don't be so critical. It's okay. Like you said, prior to this whole woke mind virus nonsense, we all kind of got along, and we had different views and different religious beliefs and different ways of thinking, but we still kind of got along. It'd be nice to get back to those days.
I agree. That I hope so. I hope one day. It's interesting because you are someone that has worked and lived in both Japan and the West, the U.S., and you're a bit of a geek and a nerd yourself. So what is the difference between these two cultures, and even like the professionals that work in voice acting? Why do we not see these same problems in Eastern countries versus mostly the United States, but also like Canada, UK, Australia, some also? Like, is there a commonality, or do you have any feeling or thought on why that might be?
Well, one, I think, the Western cultures are a hodgepodge of the world, right? A mix of different cultures. And there's more of an openness to new ideas and new things. So, Japan, Asia, there's a lot of tradition and a lot of older cultural constructs that people adhere to, and we are sort of missing that in the West, in the Western cultures. because a lot of people are willing to let go of those sometimes, and many times, often limiting beliefs or limiting cultural ways because of dogma, right? A lot of dogma comes with social constructs. And that's to the West's benefit, because they were able to shed some of that rigidness. They're able to excel in other ways. But with those, I don't want to say dogmas, but with the traditions that come with some of these older cultures, there's still a lot of good things too. And when it comes to just society functioning and having peace when you go out in the world, Asia's, because of its older social constructs, it sort of held those things together, and there's just a common respect for people that the West is quickly begin to lose. Specifically, I think because of the propaganda and because of the lies being pushed through the media, and the acceptance of tearing down another person, and we're seeing that in our social TV and everything else. There's it's okay to ridicule and to scorn and to put another person down. In the past, that really wasn't okay, but somehow, I believe the media has, specifically around Trump, using Trump as an example, and this is in other people as well, but it's been okay to demeanor and to spread lies and to say things that aren't true, but as long as everybody agrees on it, it's okay. And I don't think that's in Japan. There's a few more checkpoints. And same with I was in Taiwan a few months ago too, and I believe just Asia in general. There's more. You can't do that. You can't just go off and start spewing hate on someone, and think it's going to be okay. And again, there's pluses and minuses of that, because of the rigidness. Gay rights, trans rights are. It's much harder for them to be open and accepting in the societal constructs in Asia. In the West, it's gone too far. It's like, we're seeing those crazy parades in front of kids. So it's kind of like, somewhere in the middle is always the way I see is that sweet spot where, the West needs to dial it back, and Asia needs to be a little more open in certain ways. So these are the growing pains of our world, and it doesn't help when you have fake news, when you have propaganda and agendas being pushed through certain political means and other stuff going on too. Yeah.
I really want to hear what's going on with your relationship with Capcom. That's probably, if anything comes through this video, I think that's probably what I imagine people would most likely hear. I don't divulge anything, obviously, that's going to get you in trouble. Please.
Yeah.
I don't want to cause, I mean, hey, if you want to boost my career and tell me all the inner workings of Capcom, I mean, more power to me, but I'm really not interested.
I wish I knew.
I'm really not interested in destroying my guests and pursue that.
No. I think a lot of people overthink things. Us actors, we're just work for hire. We're freelancers. Even when I was with my old company, Just Cause, I'm no longer with them. My partner, I'm still in good relations with him. I'm going to go see him actually Sunday and hang out and have a coffee. But a lot of people think that we're employees of Capcom, that us actors, because we're voicing, especially me, because I've done so much work in the Capcom, world of all of the different characters and stuff. But that's just because I've had a good, our company, Just Cause, when I was running with my partner, we always had a good relationship with Capcom and the different producers. They, myself as an actor and a producer, it's easy to communicate, so they could say, oh, well, Reuben speaks the language, we can communicate directly without having to go through a translator to ask him to do this or that, and it's just, it was just a nice environment. So I got a lot of jobs, but I was never ever a full-time employee of Capcom. And to this day, I haven't worked on a Capcom project in a while. And people somehow think that that's my bread and butter and that's how I make my living. And I just want to say that, 99, if not all % of all actors, if not all actors, we're all freelancers. We work from project to project. We get cast, and there's no allegiance or Capcom has been very good to me over the years, and I super appreciate all of the work that they've given me to build my career and to move to have a living in that world for the period I did. But it's not what people think. So I don't know what the inner workings of our Capcom. I don't, other than I've been to Capcom studios a few times, and they're always nice people, and it's great to see everybody, and that's it.
So you wouldn't perhaps have any secret knowledge if they're going to announce Devil May Cry 6 any day now? You wouldn't be able to tell us that.
No, I couldn't.
Dang it.
And if I did, I wouldn't be able to say it either. So if
am I allowed to ask that question? Okay, so even how did they put it? The Glowsnot's response. I can neither confirm nor deny. So if I asked you, would you have information? Could you even tell me that I have information, but I'm not allowed to release the information? Could you even tell me that?
No. At this point, the honest truth is, I have not been contacted by Capcom for a Devil May Cry 6.
Okay. It's a weird place right now because...
But that doesn't mean that it's not in the works. It doesn't mean that I won't be called to work on it if it is in the works. There's so many what ifs. We typically, and now that because I'm out of the producing, I'm not wearing that producing hat anymore. As an actor, as most actors, we don't get called until towards the end. They could be... I remember Devil May Cry 5 was in development for years, 2 or 3 years before we actually got on set and actually worked on it. And because that time I was still wearing that producing hat, I got the inside info. So leaks, oh yeah, the team's working, they're doing stuff. Oh, okay. One day, and I think it was like 3 years before I even got the call that says, okay, in a year, we're going to be calling you in to, do some acting on this project. And then it's another 2 years from there to actually get to put on the mocap suit and start acting. So these things take time.
Yeah. No. Okay. What other questions? You said in a comment, I think it was at the start of this, maybe it was the end of last year, that Capcom no longer wanted you in the role of Ken Masters for Street Fighter. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, I shouldn't say Capcom. I should say Ono-san.
Okay.
Who was no longer is the producer, main producer for Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5. And he was in the beginning phases. He was on Street Fighter 6, and then he stepped down. And my issues that came about with the whole so-called cancellation was, from my belief and from my understanding, I don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, but from my understanding was a choice by Ono-san when he was still producing Street Fighter 6 in the beginning phases there. And what happened was the interview I did, which caused the internet to go bonkers, was about Vic. When I was asked by on a podcast, it was, I think, just before Devil May Cry 5 was coming out, or just around that time. I was in Japan. I had no idea what Vic was dealing with or what was going on there. And some guys on a podcast, and I think it's still probably out there, public domain, asked me, hey, what do you think is going on? And I'm like, hey, I don't know. It's all right. I said every time I worked with Vic, he was a stand-up guy. It was nice. It's good to work with. That's all I said. I never I didn't try to cover for him. I didn't try to throw him under the bus. And I just was being honest. And then all of a sudden, I just got all this crazy. I remember like a week later, people were saying, like, Reuben, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. What's going on? Like, there's like all this hate stuff about you. And Newsweek, even, and this was the straw that broke the camel's back with, I believe, with Ono-san, is Newsweek published an article. It was an online article, just totally taking everything I said out of context, totally taking my beliefs around UFOs, my investigative journalism around UFOs, taking that out of context, and calling me a conspiracy nut whack job. And Ono-san, I believe, saw that article. This is what was conveyed to me after the fact. Got cold feet and decided to not put me, because I'd already done some tests for Street Fighter 6. I'd done some motion capture tests, some facial capture stuff, because they wanted to do motion capture things. And I was already slated to be Ken Masters in Street Fighter 6. So when that went down, Ono-san, my understanding is Ono-san decided to not bring me back. And I was trying to have a meeting with him actually at E3, and Kobayashi, producer from Devil May Cry, we got him on the phone, and I was like, hey, want to get a meeting. My partner got him on the phone and was like, hey, this is really serious. And Ono-san is totally missing the boat on this one. He's not understanding what actually happened. It'd be great if Reuben could meet with him and just explain his side of the story. And I remember talking with Capcom staff. I was at the Capcom booth. Ono-san was behind the wall. And I said, hey, can I just sit down with Ono-san for 5 minutes and just like explain my side of the story? And he wouldn't even take a meeting. So in my opinion, that's where the hiccup was Ono-san had some, I think he was probably in the beginning stages of getting infected by the woke mind virus, because he did the same thing for the actress from Last of Us, Chung-Li. Anyways, she had also had some controversy articles because she was portraying a black woman in a video game, and the woke culture went after her, and she's white, but why is she playing a black woman? And Neil, the director, said, well, we auditioned tons of black women, but she was the best actress for the job, Laura Bailey. And so she got the role. And that's the beauty of motion captures. It doesn't matter what your color is. You can be black and play a white guy. You can be white and play, I've played women. Yes, women, I'm sorry. But for budgetary constraints, I've been a woman in some games for NPC characters in the background. And it's a budget thing. It's a performance thing. There's a lot of different issues involved. Has nothing to do with race or color, but the woke culture wants to make a thing of it. And so anyways, there are a lot of articles came out about that. And my understanding, same thing, Ono-san got cold feet. And he was like, oh, if there's anybody out there that's got a negative write-up on them that's in the public, we're not going to ask them to come back. And there's more to it than that too. Yeah, and then eventually they went non-union, and there was a lot of that. So most of the actors ended up not going back because I think they were non-union. But yeah, it's just a lot. There's a lot to it, guys, and I think a lot of people just love to take things. They love to take whatever piece that fits with their belief system, their construct, and say, yeah, that's it. That's the reason. And Reuben Langdon was canceled because of this. And it's not. It's like, guys, there's so many factors out there. And just because I didn't get asked to come back to the anime now as well, we can get into that. Same thing. I have no issues with Capcom. I haven't talked to them in a while. Now that I'm back in Japan, I'm looking forward to go can reconnect with Ichino-san, but he's not with the company anymore.
I know. Either, so he just finished Dragon's Dogma 2, which I enjoyed greatly.
Yeah. And that was the legacy he wanted to. When Devil May Cry 5 came along, basically he was ready to leave the company then. That's what he told me. He was going to leave then, and then they said,
even in 2019.
Yeah, even 20 2017, really. But they said, don't leave. We'll give you whatever you want. He's like, well, give me either Devil May Cry 5 or Dragon's Dogma 2. And then they gave him, and they said, well, how about Devil May Cry 5? And he's like, okay, let's do it. So he did it, right? So then I haven't talked to him in specifics about this. I imagine the way it went was he was probably ready to go after Devil May Cry 5. And then they were like, well, we'll give you Dragon's Dogma 2. And he's like, okay, I'll stay. So, then he finished that, and, he's put in his legacy, man. The guy's worked hard. So, what happens from here? Capcom has great franchises. They have a great facility and great animators and a great staff and different levels. Who knows what they're going to do? But I don't know those inner workings. I'm not an employee of Capcom. I'm just a work for hire guy. They could easily pick and do whatever they want, and it doesn't mean I'm canceled. It just means they've made a different choice in a different way, and everybody's just so quick to knee-jerk reaction. Oh, Reuben, because he said this, he's canceled, or because that happened, this is canceled. And that's not how this works, guys. Most people don't understand the inner workings of the industry.
That seems to be true for almost virtually every industry in my experience.
Yeah, pretty much.
People are, one, pretty ignorant. Two, people do not like to admit they're pretty ignorant.
And right now, because of the woke mind virus, just people are delusional in their rational thinking, and they're just whatever they're grabbing at, whatever they can grab, because what happened is for so long, we had this oppression and oppression of people of color, of gays and trans, and for so long it was like pushing this beach ball down, and that's still prominent in Asian cultures, but in the West, it started to shake off the dust, and people could come out and be more open, and it was like, yeah, it's okay, you can be who you want to be, and we're not going to judge you, and it's okay. But what happened, because you have, in my opinion, based on my research, you have specific agendas and specific groups who, profile all of the data on the social internet and everything else we have. We've seen this. We know, we've probably seen the movies and the documentaries about this. You have a group of let's just call them opportunists that like to strew or twist or turn specific narratives for their advantage, right? Mm-hmm. And usually it's about making money and control. Those are the two things, money and control, because they kind of go hand in hand. So they saw an opportunity with all the suppression that had been going on for the years, and those same people were part of the oppression, going back over time. There were the same groups that were creating the oppression, and going back to Martin Luther King and that era. And I advise everybody really give Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Listen to some of the things that he talks about, because his uncle and his father were assassinated, and mm-hmm. This strings back to the same groups that are using the narrative right now of the oppression, and then now they push the beach ball down, and now they let it out, and now instead of just letting it out in a natural sense to let everybody organically come to terms of a new culture and a new social construct, they're actually taking a hot iron and they're poking wherever they can these issues that really just, if we just let them naturally evolve, I think everybody would get along and it's gonna be fine. But they're really like, hey, you've been oppressed, you've been hurt by this specific person or that, and they're actually creating more racial tension and more issues than would happen otherwise. I think in a natural evolution, we were sort of on track with accepting each other for our differences and having less judgment. But these control factors of the world, they saw an opportunity that if we really poke the bear and if we get these people riled up, then we can create more divide and tensions with everybody else. And, it's that whole smoke and mirrors and divide and conquer type of scenario. So if people were to just take a chill pill and really see who the puppet masters are and what's really going on, we're all human. We, yes, let's have acceptance for everybody and for our different beliefs and our different ideas, and if we, and less judgment, and we can get along if we just choose to. It's just stop listening to the nonsense that's coming out from the TV.
I don't really disagree with any of that. I think that largely the culture, I agree. I think largely the culture prior to the mid of the 2010s, I felt like it was coming to a healthy equilibrium, and then something shifted. I think what's really happened, unfortunately, is that this is a problem in human nature. If you are interested in politics, the very basic building blocks of if you want to build a political career is to find a wedge issue. So find something you think, and maybe you can't even find a real thing, so you find a fake thing. You can kind of push yourself into and shoot it off. And, you have to find that tension. You have to find that energy and kind of push into it. I think the problem is now on both sides is that there's people just have to keep everyone mad. They have to keep everyone mad to keep their attention, to keep them distracted. And the saddest thing is that people who are part of these groups that you mentioned, I'm disabled. I want to go into some other things with my own life. But I totally get what you're saying, because unfortunately for people who are struggling with these issues, despite all the energy we give to them, I don't feel like we've made much progress on them. And there are very important things that, I'm a disability reporter and I'm disabled. So I see this a lot. There are very important issues that actually do need to be dealt with, but we're so much, when all the energy is focused on bull crap, nothing real actually ever gets dealt with. And it's endlessly frustrating. But I know that's a complete wild tangent, but
no, that you hit the nail on the head. That's totally it. And I do think we are coming to an equilibrium of sorts eventually, because you can't be in the state of fear and anger and hate for very long. Otherwise you just, you self-destruct. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing, the woke mind virus. You either let go of it and shift, or you're going to implode. And we're seeing, people losing their minds over their staunch beliefs on certain things. And it's like, hey, let's just take a chill pill and relax, everybody. Everybody's entitled to their beliefs. Everybody's entitled to their, as long as they're not hurting someone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's happened is, we're seeing with the in the schools, and especially in California, the push for the the surgeries. That's causing physical harm on other people. So I think people are getting to this limit now where it's like, okay, now you're crossing the line. Now, if you're of age and that's a personal choice you want to do, that's fine. But those operations are irreversible, and the damage that's caused on the physical body is it's quite intense. So yeah. So we're getting to that point where we're gonna either adjust or self-destruct.
Okay. I know we agreed to 90 minutes. Do you have any more time, or do you need to get going?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. Yeah, we can go.
Okay.
We can go.
All right. So,
let's take a sip of my coffee here.
UFOs. What do they call them now? UAPs? UAPs, that's the rebrand?
That's what the government would like to call them, but I'm fine with UFOs. They're still unidentified for most people, and they're flying objects. Why do we need to call them unidentified aerial phenomenon? It's just a part of the confusion, in my opinion.
I think it's because some people feel that labels and the picture of something matters more than maybe the thing itself. So UFOs is a bad connotation. It's icky. we need to have a new one. Which I think is like most like corporate government rebrands. It's like, no, this is the exact same. You just gave it a new name. How is this any different?
Exactly. Yeah. Whatever's everybody's comfortable with, I'll go with that. Whatever everybody wants.
It's interesting. So I want to hear your reason why you're so much into UFOs, because you have an interesting story there. I will give you this. Prior to COVID, it's 2019. Many of your views, definitely you would be put in the crazy camp but now the government has admitted actually we do have lots of sightings of these UAPs. The military, especially the Air Force, is seeing them constantly. And there's all these kind of big questions. And now we have official liaisons with the Department of Defense who are supposed to talk about it. So it's been a crazy meteoric shift to where now it's basically where scientists can finally go, maybe, this is, they are real. We don't know anything more, but it's not all kooky stuff you would hear on the radio at like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Right. Well, let's go even further. I mean, Congressman Matt Gaetz was on a podcast last week, and there was congressional hearings last year. There's a new one coming up this month, talking about it is now this is straight up fact. Matt Gaetz, through his SCIF meetings, I don't know if you know what a SCIF meeting is, where they go behind closed doors and their classified information is sort of disclosed, but Congress can't open that up to the public. But he said, without a doubt, there's enough evidence to prove that there are crash retrieval projects within the government that have obtained alien craft, quote, alien craft, and biologics, bodies have been recovered. That is a sitting member of Congress, Representative Luna, also Congressman Burchett. They've all been in SCIFs. They've all been part of these hearings. So let's take it to that. Let's play catch up. So we're at the level we're at right now. It's not that, we don't know what we're seeing. No, alien bodies have been recovered and is going back as far as Roswell, 1947. And our government has now made that information public for everyone to know. So it is now absolutely, undeniably a fact, and our government has admitted it from several Congress members and testimony in Congress that alien craft have been retrieved, and biological beings who were piloting these craft have also been or part of that recovery.
I watched a fascinating documentary. I was reading about metallurgic studies. They've done some really interesting metallurgic studies of what's believed to be extraterrestrial vehicles, or at least remnants thereof. And they're like, there's no way that this is natural. This is either man-made, or it's like something way beyond. But there's no way this could be natural. We suspect that this definitely could be possibly aliens or UFOs. I think it was kind of all. I think it was all kind of started. I think I'm trying to think. Was it the guy from? I am so bad with music, so I'm sure I'll get this wrong. The guy from Fall Out Boy. That cannot be possibly right.
No, it's Blink 182.
Thank you. I see. I tell you, I don't cover music. I cover culture.
I don't listen to his music, but he's been out there publicly talking about a lot of the same stuff which I like to talk about. So I think
so. It's like, are like actors and musicians, are they leading the charge on our extraterrestrial research? What's going on there?
No, that's just Tom. He's a prominent figure he's got a big following, and I think the CIA saw an opportunity where he had such a big following that if we work with this guy, we can get information out through some of the back channels and stuff. Some of the other people that were working within the CIA and government agencies, they saw an opportunity, so they teamed up, and then they created the To the Stars Academy back in 2017.
It's amazing. I mean, I'm just astounded. I think this is like the biggest story ever